Is he right now, is he number one on Norris ballots for you guys?
He's in the mix. Hughes, the usual suspect.
Hughes in, he scores!
Then you got Makar.
He is the best at his craft, scores!
Now Zach again, he's all over the ice here.
Score!
The Norris Trophy is awarded to the best defenseman in the NHL, but is it that easy to just pick the best? Well, no. On one hand, we have guys who are having amazing two-way seasons, a kid in his second year lighting up the league and driving play as good as anyone, Quinn Hughes, who has already set records with Minnesota, Cale Makar, well, that basically explains itself, Evan Bouchard, who has been my best defenseman in fantasy the past 2 weeks, thanks Bouch, and a guy who leads his team in scoring. So how about we take a deeper look at this and determine who really is the best? The first thing I would like to look at is how often these defenders use their shots. These maps show where the defenders most oftenly shoot from. And you may be thinking, why does this matter? Well, because it leads to underlying details in their games. The common trend with these guys is that they have above average shots. While a guy like Lane Hutson very often likes to get close to utilize a more accurate shot, guys like Cale Makar and Werenski have an exceptional shot from range. Now, you may be thinking, why wouldn't the other team just pressure them at the point? And the reason is because of how shifty these guys are. Take this play by Makar, for example. The defender comes out to challenge, and when he does, Makar uses his patented move where he fakes to one side and then pushes to the other. He very oftenly head fakes to the left and then pushes to the right, so he has a chance to shoot on his forehand. And with a game played at the speed these games are, it's basically impossible to not fall for this move. Quinn Hughes, his ability to spin off of guys with his elite edge work is almost unmatched, and it normally leads to him rushing towards the goalie for an open shot on net. Take this play against Buffalo, for example. Quinn Hughes does his move, spins off of a guy, spins again, and then bang.
Hughes in, he scores!
But shifting at the line isn't the only way to play. Werenski has a different style. His shot is incredible. Werenski isn't a guy who's constantly moving at the line, and the odd time you'll see him make a move just to get around a guy, but his main play is just picking his spots and driving down the wing and using his shot, which seems to lead to a goal most of the time. He's more accurate than almost anyone in the NHL, it seems, and his wrist shot is absolutely lethal. That's why he leads his team in goals this year as a defenseman. That said, wrist shots also aren't the only way to score as a defenseman. Bouchard and Seider have two of the heaviest shots in the game. And if the first result isn't scoring with these guys, the goalie struggles to catch the puck, so it typically leads to a rebound. The ability to generate rebounds usually leads to a high danger chance. And with these two guys ranking 2nd and 10th in rebounds created, it's safe to say they create a lot of chances for their teams. And if you're Bouchard with a net front guy like Zach Hyman, the ability to rack up assists off rebounds is pretty easy. The second thing I'd like to talk about is deception. Deception is one of the main things that makes these players as good as they are. As I already touched on, you see the ability these guys have to create space. Some use physicality, but most commonly these skilled players use their edge work and head fakes. One thing you'll notice about these guys is how often they watch for a defender to shift their hips or cross over. It's a cue for them, and they know when it's time to execute their move. One guy I didn't go into detail on the last example is Hutson. Hutson is very dynamic, and you'll see on this play against the Flyers, he skates the puck up ice. And when he reaches the first defender, he uses a head fake. The defender bites and starts to cross over. Once Hutson sees that, he knows he has him and accelerates past him. The second defender gives Hutson some space, and once Hutson sees the defenders backing off, he utilizes the space to the best of his ability, and he scores. The most dangerous thing about these guys is their ability to create with open ice, and it all ties into the next skill I wanted to talk about. Playmaking. Playmaking is different for all these guys. A guy like Bouchard is a feared shooting threat, so when he comes down into the zone, defenders typically freeze expecting a shot. This opens up space for McDavid and Draisaitl, and is the reason why Bouchard acts like a complementary piece for McDavid and Draisaitl. On the other hand, you have a guy like Seider. Seider's a big frame, so you won't see him moving like these other guys, but his ability to produce on offense springs from his great vision. Seider typically knows where he's going to go with the puck before he passes it. Combined with a great ability for quick passing, it's no wonder he's a difference maker in the offensive zone. Speaking of a difference maker in the offensive zone, Lane Hutson. Hutson has the green light to take off into rushes for Montreal. His vision is elite, and he makes passes most guys can't even dream of making. Take this play against the Wild the other night. When he shakes the guy who's at the line, he drives down along the side of the boards and slides the puck past 5 defenders to Ivan Dimitrov, who puts it in the back of the net. Most guys can't even dream of doing that, but Lane Hutson makes it look easy on a routine night. Another guy who can do this is Cale Makar. He's great offensively. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has 2 Norris trophies and who had 30 goals last year. His edge work and speed are key contributors to why he produces at the rate he does. Combined with being a major shooting threat, it provides him more time and space to be able to set up great plays. Werenski is very similar to Makar in that aspect. A guy who has a great shot that a lot of defenders really fear. Werenski typically waits for lanes to open up along the side of the boards, and much like Bouchard and Seider, uses a shot to create rebounds in front of the net. A lot of Werenski's production springs from his shot, and Columbus seems to really mold their offense around him. Another guy we're going to talk about is Quinn Hughes. He's a combination of all these guys. He uses shiftiness and skating to generate space like Hutson, and drives the net like Werenski. He seems to be able to do whatever he wants, but his spin move is definitely the root of most of his offensive production. Along with the great vision, no wonder this guy's breaking records in Minnesota. Mind you, he's only been there 2 months. The last thing I wanted to touch on is defensive play. Seider and Bouchard have been great defensively this year.
Bouchard coughed it up, and there's Thompson's 14th.
Telegraph the back pass, picked off. Kelly in front, Makar short-handed, shoots and scores!
And then Bouchard had his pocket picked. Barzell on a breakaway, in on Skinner, scores!
Well, maybe not Bouchard, but Seider has been great, and quite frankly is one of the reasons he's even in the Norris conversation. He logs a ton of minutes, to be precise, the most by any D-man in the NHL this year, and he's hard to play against. The jack of all trades, if you will. He is one of the most important players to his team in the NHL. And one stat I find insane about Seider is the Detroit Red Wings are the only team in the top 16 in the NHL that are a negative, coming in at a -1. But Seider, even with logging the most time on ice, is a +13. It's crazy how untalked about this guy is outside of Detroit. And honestly, I can see why Detroit fans are crying for him to get Norris attention. Because he deserves it. Cale Makar is no Seider defensively, but he uses a very hybrid style of defense. Makar very frequently finishes among the top of the league in takeaways, along with Lane Hutson, which is very important and leads to quick transitional plays from one zone to another. For Makar, the least amount of time he stays in the defensive zone, the better. It's also a very similar situation for Hutson. Hutson has very low time in his defensive zone, and this is on purpose. Hutson doesn't start a lot of shifts in the defensive zone. He's typically utilized in offensive situations, but this isn't to say he can't play defense. He's actually come a long way from his rookie year, and as I mentioned, he is one of the top defensemen in the league for takeaways. Stick work is a very common trend for these smaller players. Hughes is also a defenseman who relies on his stick work with a smaller frame. Boxing guys out in front of the net doesn't really come easy to him, so he typically uses his stick to intercept pucks and clear the defensive zone for his team. Last is Werenski. He can kind of do it all. Watch on this play here, for example, when he takes the inside away from Ryan Hartman, giving him no option to cut inside, and forcing a shot from a weak position. This all starts with Werenski's skating ability, but his physicality and stick work, along with his heads-up plays defensively, shows why Werenski is so good on both sides of the ice. So what we can take out of everything we looked at today is these guys are all elite defensemen. But the guy who I think deserves a Norris is Zach Werenski. What he's doing on his team with limited help is just almost unheard of. And if it weren't for guys like Macklin Celebrini, Nathan McKinnon, and Connor McDavid, he'd honestly probably win the Hart too. If Columbus somehow finds a way to make the playoffs, he might even end up sneaking into that conversation. Thank you to everyone who watched today. You guys are awesome, and thank you for the support on my last video. The overwhelming amount of support was actually awesome, and thanks for helping me finally reach my goal of becoming monetized. What started 2 years ago as me sitting in my house designing a logo is now becoming a brand, and it's crazy for me to think about. I couldn't do it without your guys' support, so truly, I really appreciate everything you guys do for me. With that being said, I hope everyone has a great week. I'm going to try and start uploading videos once every 2 weeks. But until then, this is Intermission Entertainment, signing off.